Welcome and thank you for joining me today. Before we get started, I thought I would share a bit about myself and K-State. I've been working in academic libraries for over 20 years with the majority of my experience.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, great.
I thought it was, we were muted. We're not muted?
No.
Technical difficulties. So I'll just resume. The majority of my background includes extensive work with interlibrary loan and course reserves or affordable textbook programs. These are services that I believe are deeply intertwined with collection development. When I transitioned to a full-time role in collection development, I brought that experience with me. As a result, my approach to collection development often integrates that data from those user-centric services. K-State is the first land-grant university in the United States, and we are an R1 institution with engineering, agricultural, and veterinary sciences as our major programs. Currently, we have more than 20,000 students, but with the new university strategic plan, that we have a goal of reaching 35,000 students within the next 5 years. At K-State, we use multiple data points and products to inform our decision making, while most of us collection development professionals are familiar with counter data. Our assessment strategies go beyond standard metrics. We employ additional tools that offer deeper insights into what we own, how we own it, and how it is being used. With the current ProQuest announcement about ebooks, I'm going to go through a few of the tips we use for journals and end with our strategy for assessing ProQuest Central. As I said before, I come from an interlibrary loan background with a tremendous amount of time spent in that area. As such, one of the first things I did when I came into this role was I requested direct access to ILLiad. I wanted to be able to run quarterly reports that could analyze alongside counter data. Historically, electronic resources librarians have used borrowing statistics and copyright clearance costs to identify high demand journals and frequently requested books that may warrant acquisition. While I use ILL data this way, I also use it as a tool for broader collection analysis. The standard reports available in ILLiad are very easy to run and provide a wealth of information beyond simple borrowing trends. They can reveal the overall health of the library's collection. It can subject areas where coverage is lacking, justifies the purchase of back files, and it can provide more granular journal usage by pulling out ILL versus local access. For example, I have encountered journals where nearly half of the reported counter usage came from ILL lending. This raises an important question. Who are we maintaining our subscriptions for? Is it for our institution or is it for others? This insight is particularly valuable when negotiating big contract deals, when cost decreases are warranted. I will say that when you look at this slide, I've given you the actual reports that are in ILLiad that you can run. Borrowing and lending are very important for a variety of reasons. Document delivery is where, for us at least, it's what we've scanned for our individuals. So that usually comes from our offsite facility and is usually older materials that we don't have electronic access for. Hopefully you guys can see my screens now. So this particular screen can show you exactly which reports can be run. And you can always ask your interlibrary loan person to give you a hand to help you out. I maintain about 3 to 5 years of ILL data across lending, borrowing, and document delivery to track trends in journal, book, and article requests. And when I negotiate large journal package such as Elsevier, I integrate this data into my primary Excel sheet. It looks like this. I add 3 columns to reflect the ILL related activity. This particular screen is the 5 years of data. It's just a screenshot. And this is what it looks like when I put it into the entire package. So as you can see from the lighter colored columns, that's lending, borrowing, and document delivery. When I do journal package negotiations, some of the key things that I use that are the most impactful alongside of ILL data is that I calculate how much it would cost to purchase these items or purchase the CPU for all years for that contract. I determine how much it would cost to have all of that CPU go through interlibrary loan. One of the things that you probably should always consider when you are taking care of interlibrary loan is that we like to look at 3 different factors. I use this to, you should contact your ILL person to ask about how much those imposed copyright fees are per publisher, because that can vary greatly. For Elsevier, it's about $25 per article for copyright, and Taylor and Francis and Springer can be as much as $75 per article to run it through interlibrary loan. When I calculate that dollar figure with usage and copyright to find out which way is cheaper. Would it be cheaper for us to run it through, say, Article Galaxy Scholar? Or would it be cheaper for us to run it through interlibrary loan? Or would it be cheaper for us to come up with a subscription? Here's what those calculations look like. As you can see, like say for the one that's the second one, the Journal of Crystal Growth, the CPU for the entire year was $172. And we calculated how much it would cost instead of to run it through Iliad instead of the Elsevier numbers. And it's minimally more expensive. Whereas if everything in red, if we ran those through interlibrary loan, those dollar figures for running it through interlibrary loan instead are astronomical. I also look at which ones turned OA, and I calculate those. And we have now made our arrangements with Elsevier to be able to swap titles. Whenever something goes OA, we can add a new additional title to our UTL list. I have changed all of the dollar figures for Elsevier in this spreadsheet, but the cost for Iliad is actual. We use this in a variety of different ways. So the ILL data in the pale 3 columns, and then the one next to that is the CPU for 3 years of the contract. And then next to that would be the cost for it to be sent through interlibrary loan. This one also shows the column which has our suggestions for keeping or cutting or whatever notes we had as to whether or not we should keep or not. To ensure this comprehensive assessment of our collections with this ILL data in nearly all of my spreadsheets, I do it for Wiley, I do it for all of our big package deals. Doing the part where I calculate the cost with copyright, I only choose to do that for larger packages or when we have to do cuts. Otherwise, it's a bit of a step that's a bit time consuming. Another tool which we use at K-State is Unsub. I know many other people use this as well. For us, we've only been using it for about 2.5 years. And particularly in the context for like the larger packages like Wiley or Elsevier, Unsub's predictive modeling has been instrumental in shifting our approach to journal subscriptions from traditional to bundled model and to a more sustainable demand-driven strategy. It's allowed us to see the extent to which perpetual access fulfills our needs if we discontinue a subscription, the cost effectiveness of retaining versus canceling an entire package. Unsub is not perfect, and it's also very limited. However, we have found value in it to answer some of these few questions. I know that other people have talked about CELUS this week, and we love it. We use it frequently. It is very new to K-State. We've been using it for a little over a year, but it's quickly become an essential part of my daily workflow. It is open on my desktop every day, all day. It provides a seamless, consolidated view of our packages and databases, and even individual title statistics, regardless of how many platforms we have access to them on. What makes CELUS particularly valuable is its ability to reveal not only the usage trends, but also which platform is most utilized by our users. This is the capability that I have found even more useful than Unsub, as it allows for direct side-by-side platform comparisons. When we renegotiated contracts, we rarely take the time to check to see if we have access to that resource elsewhere. And if so, compare the performance between the different platforms. CELUS provides this process by delivering that data instantly, making it an indispensable tool for optimizing our electronic resource investments. Here is a screenshot of CELUS. I have searched for the Journal of Dairy Science, and this is what it looks like when I just turn it on and search. If I click on the Journal of Dairy Science, this is the top part of the screen. It shows you kind of a few different options. It shows you how many articles are full text. It also tells me which platforms it's available on. The bottom part of that screen looks like this. And I can choose whichever counter report I want, and the graph will change. I can decide if I want the denials, and then just look at denials, and it'll have this lovely little graph. And I can download any of this data instantaneously in counter format. And this is probably the number one thing that I love about CELUS. So I don't know about you, but our ILS is Alma, and Alma is not very good with sushi. And it's not very easy to download data from sushi in Alma. And I'll even admit that ours isn't fully set up. So for us, even though CELUS takes effort and time to make sure that all of your counter is added to it, that your sushi is connecting to all of your different resources, this is fabulous, because we've always been like one that goes out to the publisher and pulls down the stats from the publisher's page. And as you know, that's time consuming. You have to remember your password. You have to go find the password. Then you have to log in, and then you have to do all that downloading. CELUS is super easy because it's there, and I can just hit download, and it instantly downloads it to my desktop. And this is probably the thing I love the most, because I no longer have to remember all those passwords. I don't have to go to publisher sites. I can see this lovely graph instantaneously. It's not perfect. It does have its quirks, but for the time and effort it takes to do the alternative, this is bang on a game changer for K-State. And the whole team that does collection development uses it constantly. It's just so much faster. It's also pretty good with non-counter. This is for O'Reilly. Someone yesterday was talking about Canopy, and this is what O'Reilly looks like. The main screen very clearly says enter report type non-counter. And the report is the report where before I could choose a long list of which types of counter I could choose. This one only has the O'Reilly proprietary. So this is all I get. I mean, it's not perfect, it's not great, but it's something. So what do we do when there's like no information at all? So we all know that there's a number of faculty that are still going to go out to ResearchGate and pull data. We know people are still going to other not very kind to library sites and pulling up data that way. What we have found is that we kind of ignore some of that to a degree. We know it's happening. We know that people are kind of finding new ways of finding things. So what we have started doing is that we have started going out to faculty members and communicating with them directly. We always have those faculty members who like declare with fervor and strength that a specific journal must be owned by the library. We can search for that title in counter turnaways or in ILO borrowing stats, and sometimes that data doesn't support the purchase. And sometimes that information is just not enough to satisfy that faculty member. So what I have been doing over the last 2 years is I have been doing the rounds to all of our college department heads. And I bring with me a list of the subscribed or owned journals which we have that are in their field. And then I ask them to work at one of their department head meetings to rate them. So I want to know which ones have the most important ones that are in their field, which are the ones that are the crucial ones, which ones are ones that are nice to have but aren't crucial, and then which ones on that list maybe aren't applicable anymore. We found that last year we did this with science, with our physics and maths departments, and physics has shifted its gears and was no longer needing two journals that were rather expensive that we could drop, and they wanted some other ones because they now were going more into nuclear engineering, and what we had was not their most preferred title. So by having them go through and make us this list, and then every year I'm now sending them back that list and asking them to re-engage with it and reschedule it and populate it in a different fashion. Those have kind of become our go-tos. We've now been able to tag the titles that are the most important as kind of don't touch items, and then those ones that they don't want anymore, we can either swap with the title that they do want, or we can add it to a wish list. And I'm very confident when I talk to them and tell them that this is not a done deal. You know, you asking for a title doesn't mean we're going to be able to get it, but it does mean that I will put it on a higher want list. And if we do happen to have the funds, or if we do reduce the number of titles somewhere, we may be able to pick that one up. The other thing that we've tried doing now is we've just started using Article Galaxy Scholar. And I know many of you are using this product as well. We've found that it's seamless and instantly delivers whatever pre-selected journals that we are no longer subscribing to. It's an excellent way to provide that access where usage is strong enough but not strong enough to subscribe. When we were doing Elsevier last year, we identified a number of titles that we no longer could afford to purchase because our dean came forward and said we needed a 10% cut to our Elsevier journal budget. That meant for us that we had to remove a few dozen titles out of our list that was already quite small. And we identified a number of those titles that we have been trialing on Article Galaxy Scholar to see if that use still holds. I have a feeling that that even though we don't have data on this yet, it's only just been implemented. But we have like seriously high hopes. When we did our assessment, we had some not just from Elsevier that we were going to trial, but Taylor and Francis, since their ILL charges for copyright are so gigantic, but then their cost for the subscriptions are also quite high. We can't justify those subscriptions, but we can justify adding it to Gardicle Galaxy Scholar, and hopefully those titles will get some good use. We also added some Springer Nature titles. Nature Food in particular was one that we were getting quite a few requests for, but the turnaways were just not worth spending $15,000 on a new journal. So we're hoping that adding Article Galaxy Scholar will just work, and I suspect it's going to become a norm for K-State, and especially as we're forced to reduce our large package deals. And I think that this is just going to become what we're going to be doing going forward. When we have been approaching our journal package negotiations, many of us request data from our vendors from institutional author contributions from their journals. And while K-State follows this practice, we've also taken a step further by leveraging the talents of our liaison librarians to extract data from Scopus and Web of Science for an annual review of our scholarly output across journals and books. So when we end up going force for our negotiations, we have already identified shifts in journal preferences, and we've already assessed the value of transformative agreements that might possibly come up from publishers. And we've already gotten the data to support any sort of decision-making process about our subscriptions. It is rarely accurate to the moment when we do this because we only do it once a year. But by having this information readily available, we enter negotiations already full of information. We already have a semblance of a strategy. We do not start the process waiting for the vendor data or the new contracted cost. At the table, we've already done our homework in knowing the value our authors are providing to our publishers. Next, I'm going to go through our strategy for ProQuest, eBook Central, and I'll give you a little bit of a background to this. When I started my role at K-State, we lacked an electronic course reserve system. I was a little surprised by this at the beginning because as an R1 and as someone who's been in reserves for the bulk of my library career, I just couldn't believe we did not have one. So I really pushed for us to create one. We only had print, and at that time we had our relationship with the campus bookstore was very strained. We were unable to get the required textbook lists from them. So over the last 2 years, I've worked really closely with the Vice President of Student Success, the Vice President of Academic Affairs, and our Follett bookstore to establish a collaborative relationship. And as a result, we now are getting those comprehensive required course material lists every semester. And I also have back-end access to the registrar system. And that allows me to analyze enrollment data and faculty information to be able to look up titles to see which faculty member is teaching that class. And by cross-referencing the bookstore data in our ALMA system, we initially discovered that the library owned about 13% of all required materials. And this was primarily in print, and some coverage from large ebook packages like eBook Central and Wiley and Elsevier, and a lot was in O'Reilly. I was really surprised how much was in O'Reilly. After integrating our textbook and course reserves programs into one seamless service, We then allocated $10,000 in general collection funds, and our coverage has now grown to approximately 42% of all required books are now part of the library. And that's been within 2 years. This initiative has generated so much data that we are now developing an internal database to track multiple purchases, multiple years of required book data and library holdings and acquisitions costs. The system will integrate with the library's ILS ALMA using APIs, and along with K-State's registrar system also using APIs. This will allow us to analyze trends and measure student cost savings and our purchasing strategies in real time. This information feeds how we will be accessing ProQuest eBook Central over the next 8 months. We are lucky that we have already identified which titles in ProQuest are currently being used for course materials. Add all the other high-use book titles, and we can very easily have a fast spreadsheet to work with. That ticks off the first bullet on this slide. Just as we now analyze the journals, we can apply the same data-driven approach to ebooks. CELUS allows for individual book lookups, and ALMA allows for the creation of collections. We have created a collection of all of the ebooks that are currently being used as course material. This has enabled us to tag those in ALMA, which then feeds into CELUS. ALMA is what we also use for course reserves, and that also integrates into our lovely plan for our database. A key focus will be identifying the duplicate access. Since ProQuest eBook Central includes both package and a la carte purchases, this is very challenging to differentiate between the two. In my spreadsheet, it shows up as just ProQuest eBook Central, which makes that difference between purchased and not purchased very hard to figure out. Our users prefer the ProQuest platform, and as a result, we've primarily purchased ebooks individually through ProQuest. However, eBook Central structure kind of complicates the tracking. As you can see from the rest of this slide, after we identify the duplicates, we're going to have a large conversation about finances. With the current political situation going on, all of us are now having to have hard conversations about what's going to occur moving forward with our budgets, and K-State is no exception. We also will be marketing to faculty who use ProQuest URLs in their Canvas courses to have the switch happen. This is an example of what my bookstore data looks like before we end up switching over to our database. For other libraries, I strongly recommend securing your university's required course material list. Every institution must report this data externally, and someone on campus compiles it. At K-State, the bookstore serves as the main repository, while the Office of Academic Affairs cleans and submits that data. Building relationships with these stakeholders is crucial. Once they understand the link to student success and textbook affordability, they will be eager to share this data every semester. All integrated library systems support batch ISBN queries, making it possible to determine which required materials you already own. This approach is far more effective than relying on solely on counter reports for high usage titles, as some required materials have lower use due to smaller class size. I will warn you, bookstore data is rarely clean. It's populated by faculty submissions. Often titles are incomplete. Authors are lacking ISBNs. They are frequently incorrect or are listed as, in our case, Follett specific numbers. If you end up having books that are those books that are made for your institution, like McGraw-Hill, Cengage, or Pearson, those almost never will be quality ISBNs that you can plunk into Alma or you can run through Gobi. And we run everything not only through Alma, but anything which we don't own, we also take those ISBNs and run them through Gobi to see what the options are. You also have the option of contacting your Gobi rep if you use them, and they can send you the most beautiful spreadsheets with every option of purchasing. It does take a lot of effort to clean this up. However, I think it's worth it. I have found that not only has been the relationships that we forged across campus concerning this data been highly positive for the library, it's also been really helpful for collection development. We've been able to fully be able to tell the university how much we are paying for not just journals, but also books that are in support of courses. And this has allowed us to get grant funding across campus that we would not have been able to get otherwise. Well, this seems to have gone by quite quickly, but I have some final thoughts. The landscape of academic library collections is evolving rapidly, and usage data is one of the most powerful tools we have to navigate these changes. By integrating ILL statistics and copyright and cost analysis and course reserve citations and titles and tools like Unsub and CELUS and Scopus and Web of Science into our decision-making processes, we can make informed and strategic choices that align with both the institutional priorities and our users' needs. I hope that some of the tips that I've shared today will prove useful in your own collection development efforts. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts and discuss how your own institutions are leveraging data in similar ways.
Thank you very much.
Be happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Okay, first we have a couple of comments. Megan Lenahan from Binghamton agrees with the difficulty with sushi in Alma. And Jessica Gilbert Redmond from University of North Dakota said same. They're using libinsight because Alma was finicky. So yeah, definitely supportive of that. And then first question from Kelly McCusker at Aurora Library, University of Colorado, Denver. For these journal lists that you circulate to the departments, how long are the lists? What is the response rate? What is the timing?
Well, the response rate was fabulous. We're not giving them every single title that could, vast long lists that could go on for days. We're giving them what we believe are the core titles for their field based on, years of collection strategy, people's opinions. So when we started with math physics, I already had known that department head, so I knew that that was going to be an easy conversation. And that list we came up with was basically, I did a search within Alma for all of the ones that seemed closest in their field, but it's not exhaustive. And so far, I have gotten around 15, I think 14 exactly. Most of the sciences have been very responsive because I meet with them yearly. Most of the time I meet with them twice a year. I'm kind of a nosy body that tends to show up to their faculty meetings and just sits. They're really kind in letting me to do that. but that's how I learn where their research efforts have changed, what their topics have changed, how their studies are evolving. The lists are really, really, really useful. And agronomy was this year, as was horticulture. And we sent some to the extension service just to see what they might say. And I was quite surprised that they didn't really care. But yeah, I think it's been really helpful so far.
Fantastic. Thank you. We have a question from Joanna Reardon at Haverford College. She asks, how does Article Galaxy Scholar compare to Get It Now?
So we have Get It Now. And we like Article Galaxy Scholar. It's a little bit cheaper. It's absolutely instantaneous. I can't really tell right yet because we literally have turned it on about 3 months ago.
Okay.
So it's too new for me to tell you otherwise, but we have high hopes. We have the difference between the two that I can see is that in Article Galaxy Scholar, we choose which journals we want added. It's not for everything. We have just chosen around a dozen titles to start with. So those will be like nature food will go straight through. There's a chemistry one in particular I'm thinking right now that will go straight through. And it will just seem like they're just getting it like it's from our own collection.
Okay, thank you. We also have a question from Haley Battaglia at Southern Connecticut State University Library. She says, do you rely on the subject liaison program to consult with academic programs on journal importance, or do you reach out yourself?
So K-State's a little different than other institutions. We do not have subject specialists that do collection development. There are 3 of us in our department. There's me that does all of the STEM sciences. We have another person that does all of the humanities and social sciences. And then we have a lead that kind of takes on a lot of our vendor conversations for negotiations and contracts and stuff like that. So we have liaisons, and they mostly have interactions with the departments for doing programs and classwork. And I use them as kind of the conversation starter. So they communicate with them and they get me access to their meetings. And so they don't really do a tremendous amount as far as helping decide which journals are important or not, other than what they get as opinions from their own constituents. And we do take that into account very frequently, and we buy on demand based on a lot of those faculties' suggestions, but not necessarily journals, but definitely books.
Okay, we have a comment from Katie Simmons, who works at the State Library of Kansas. She says, as a K-State undergraduate alum from 2008, I will say I didn't use the library much. It seemed too difficult to get books and articles, and staff seemed to get upset if you asked them how to find something. I am glad to see more collaboration between the library departments and the bookstore, as well as simplifying the process.
Oh, the bookstore was awful.
Oh, really?
When I started, all I got was, you don't want to talk to Follett, they're awful. However, when I was at Northern Arizona, I had a fabulous relationship with Follett. So I kind of ignore it when people say don't do something and you'll never get through, because I got through. And now we have a terrific relationship and they're very collaborative.
That's
We
good
now
to
have
hear.
worked with them to the point where when faculty put in a textbook that's out of print, they contact us first. And if we can purchase a copy of it, we can also try to contact the previous author to see if we have rights to be able to scan it. And we've had success with that.
Oh, that's great. We have a question from Laura Street from Vassar College. Do you use Alma Analytics for any needs or usage stats?
We do, and we have a fantastic discovery librarian that's fabulous with Alma, and he's been great about creating us a lot of dashboards. So we have a dashboard that shows our up-to-date expenditures, so I can look very easily to see how much we've spent in whatever fund code that we have listed. We also have another dashboard that shows me everything having to do with reserves. So I can easily look up in reserves to find out how many of X journals are being used in Canvas. So we're uploading them up into Canvas. And I do run quite a number of reports through Alma. But, we had a fire about 5 years ago. And even though most of the collection was not physically damaged, it did close our building for 5 years, well, 4 years. And during that time, we had no access to our materials because they were being fumigated for smoke. I wanted to say fumigation, but so they were being fixed for having smoke damage. And our e-resources librarian quit during that. So for about 2.5 years, we didn't have an e-resources librarian at all, at the same time that we were shortly after we migrated to Alma. So our Alma sushi has never been fully fixed. It's never been fully realized. And we found that this last summer, it was much easier for us to go all in for CELUS. And we have not, it's fabulous.
That's all very good information. I'm interested in CELUS too, thanks to your.
It really is terrific. I can't tell you how great it is to literally just be able to type in a single title and be able to see that title on multiple platforms. You can do it with books. You can do it with, I can very easily see if something, we get a lot of stuff that's on Gale that's also on other platforms, and it'll show the Gale title and it'll show the information from what other platforms we might have that journal on. And you can see which one is getting more use. You can see the range of dates that you have access to. And it's instantaneous.
That all sounds fantastic.
It is.
Okay, so Joanna Reardon from Harvard said, thanks for your response about the Article Galaxy. She says they only activate certain titles, forget it now as well. But she's glad to know that Article Galaxy is a good option.
So far, we'll see. We had been to quite a number of conferences where people had talked about Article Galaxy Scholar, and then we have a new ILL person that was using it at their former institution, and he was a big push for us to turn it on.
Fantastic. Wow, you really had a difficult go there with your e-resource librarian for all that time. That sounds like quite a challenge to deal with.
Well, not so bad.
Okay.
I will say that I prefer collection services, and I love doing collection strategy more than any other job I've ever had in my libraries. I love data, truly love data, and I love user-centric data. So this kind of brings a lot of the information, like the ILL stuff, has been really a game changer too. Being able to calculate the costs of it to go through copyright. We were able to knock off quite a few titles off of our UTL Elsevier list from that alone. You couldn't do it by usage stats by themselves because the usage stats were strong. But if you calculated how much it would cost to run it through copyright, that changed a lot. And it flipped quite a number of titles that you wouldn't have thought.
All right. Well, we've reached the end of our time box, and I'm not seeing any more questions from the participants. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. This was a very
Thank you.
instructive and interesting presentation.
I appreciate it. You all have a lovely day. Enjoy the conference.